We are over 8 months away from the US presidential election, where it's looking like we will see a repeat showdown between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And while both candidates aren't exactly scandal or problem-free, there is one main issue hanging over the head of Joe Biden set to play on voter minds come election day. That is, of course, his age and his cognitive abilities. At 81 years old, Joe Biden is the oldest sitting president in US history. If he's re-elected in November, he will be 82 years old. If he wins, he will finish his second term at 86 years old. But this is not just about a number. For years now, President Biden's cognitive health has been front and centre of headlines around the world as he continues to display concerning behaviour on the global stage. Whether it's losing his focus, forgetting names, dates or his own policies, mumbling over his words or stumbling off stage, it hasn't gone unnoticed. A recent NBC News poll found 76% of Americans have major or moderate concerns about whether President Biden has the necessary mental and physical health to be able to lead the country for another 4 years. So the question begs, does Joe Biden need to sit a cognitive exam to prove he is sound of mind, the same way Donald Trump had to in 2018? Now, if this is content you enjoy, don't forget to like and subscribe to our TalkTV YouTube page. Here to help me dissect and analyse Joe Biden's cognitive abilities and brain is Neurosurgeon Dr. Sapphire. Dr. Sapphire, from your expert neuro opinion, when you're watching President Joe Biden on stage, are you concerned at all?
I think that you touched on something very poignant, which is that age is not just a number. My father, who is slightly older than Joe Biden, is completely cognitively intact and probably even more so than I am before my morning cup of coffee so much. But as you see somebody age and certainly display certain characteristics, word finding issues, maybe some memory issues, then that does become a concern, especially if there's a repetitive pattern. Now, obviously, I haven't examined Joe Biden. He's not a patient of mine, so it's hard for me to really create or extrapolate that much of a cognitive assessment. But I can tell you that certainly as all of us age, our brains, our bodies undergo substantial changes, and there is a potential for cognitive deterioration over time.
Critics have argued that Joe Biden's forgetfulness or demeanour in general could suggest that he could be suffering from dementia. What do you think about that? Or is this just the average 81-year-old?
Well, there's lots of different types of dementias that are caused by blood vessel disorders, by a buildup of certain types of proteins within the brains. While it is possible that someone who is in their 80s can be suffering from dementia, there are certainly people who can suffer from dementia in as early as their 50s or 60s. So again, it's hard to just ascribe that because somebody is a numerical age that they are suffering from dementia. You really need to dig down and examine that person, put them through a battery of neurocognitive tests to come up with that ultimate diagnosis. But it certainly is a possibility.
Hmm. Well, a neuroscientist wrote in the New York Times that everyone forgets. In fact, it's obviously more common when you're getting older. But that, of course, we can't crucify the president for being human and acting his age. But do you see anything specifically that Joe Biden does to cause concerns for his cognitive abilities?
He's reapplying for the job of one of the most powerful individuals on the planet, or the free world. And I think that would give me concern for anybody applying for that job to have, their full cognitive abilities about them. I certainly don't think it's unreasonable to consider that somebody in that position, especially if they are displaying elements of quote unquote forgetfulness or flubbing over words, that would give me pause and would want that applicant for that position to really, demonstrate that they have sound mind and full cognitive ability. So yes, in short, there are issues that are there that are undeniable. There's a reason why so many critics have been sounding, alarmed or concerned, and it's undeniable that there's been some gaffes. But because of that, because of the certain, the role that he's applying for, I think that we should be doing a deeper dive.
Mm. Well, for years now, and specifically even more in the last few weeks, Joe Biden has been told that he should be sitting a cognitive exam. Do you think that he would pass an exam like this?
That's hard for me to say right now. Again, I haven't examined him, and I certainly haven't met Joe Biden personally. So there's no way for me to comment, fully on that. But I don't think it's unreasonable for anybody who's applying for this position to sit for a cognitive exam. As a neurosurgeon that specializes for brain tumors and certain types of blood vessel disorders of the brain, after a patient's mind has endured a neurological condition or sequelae of events, I certainly recommend to them always, before they get behind the wheel of a car, for instance, to undergo an outpatient driving evaluation cognitive exam. And that's because we know that even something so commonplace as driving a car requires intense focus and cognitive ability. Well, if you have a slight decrement, that could cause a traffic collision or an accident. People can get hurt and property can be damaged. Certainly somebody that's applying for the role of president of the United States and one of the leaders of the free world, I think that person needs to have a cognitive exam, certainly to demonstrate that they are capable of performing the duties to the utmost capacity.
Well, Joe Biden's brain would only deteriorate, obviously, like anyone else on planet Earth. But is there any way to improve this situation, or is this just a product of aging?
Well, I think mental health and brain health activities certainly are there. We want to start those as early as possible. Good, healthy lifestyle and dietary choices are instrumental in maintaining one's cognitive ability. Usually, when we talk about cognitive decline with age, it is a series of events, sequelae of years, decades worth of changes that occur. So to say at the age of, say, 81 years old, to now start reversing some of the brain deterioration, that may be a little bit more challenging. But certain lifestyle choices, and I don't know if they pertain to Joe Biden, but certainly, as you can imagine, things like alcohol consumption, dietary intake, cognitive exercises, reading, certain activities like that are always helpful in improving one's cognitive performance and function.
Mm. Dr. Sapphire, just finally, it's obviously a very demanding job to be running a country, one of which requires long hours and a lot of travel. Would you, as a physician in general, would you ever recommend an 82-year-old be carrying out this level of labour for 4 more years?
Well, again, age is just a number, right? So 82 doesn't necessarily mean that he is performing any less than, say, someone who's 62 years old. But certainly you can draw some type of line of reasoning to that. I think that if Joe Biden were to undergo a cognitive evaluation and if he were to demonstrate proficiency in that cognitive test and demonstrate that he's capable of performing that, I would urge him to perform that job to the utmost of his ability and to take precautions to make sure that he maintains that cognitive performance, as I would for anybody of any age. So to your point, traveling, lack of sleep, all these things impair our ability to perform. We know that with airplane pilots, they can't fly after a certain number of hours because their cognitive ability decreases. So yes, I think that as we age, we need to be more aware of that and understand that we're potentially more subject to those stressors. So I don't think that's unreasonable to offer that precaution. But I think that the first step that needs to take place is we need to see that he's capable of performing those duties and undergo some type of testing.
Mm. Dr. Paul Sapphire, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.